Whoa, all four wheels off the ground there in the old dolly. Driving lights nosed into the ground a bit there.
Right on. This is wrong. Okay.
Welcome to yet another episode of the restoration of a Triumph Dolomite Sprint rally car. Now, last time I put the subframe in, so now it's time to put the front suspension together. We're going to start off with this, which is like a bracket, bolts to the subframe. These are the top suspension arms, and we'll get that bolted on. Okay, on one end of this monstrosity is a bracket like this. Now these are prone to breaking. In fact, I must have wrecked out for parts half a dozen dollies over the years, and I got none of these left. They just keep breaking. Consequently, this one's been welded up. It's also had a little gusset welded across there to strengthen it up. It wasn't actually my idea. I found it on another dolly that I had wrecked out for parts, so I thought that's a good idea, so I've done it now on both of them. So this goes on that end of that, like that, and on the other end, oh, it's not the right nut. Anyway, on this end goes that nut. Oh, third time lucky. Hopefully the right nut this time. No matter how hard you sort of work towards, you know, storing stuff away, labelling it, so that you have the right nuts, bolts that go everywhere, never quite works out. Alright, now this goes in here. Now, considering this has taken the whole load of the suspension, it's bolted on with some relatively flimsy sort of bolts. That's what it was. Now, where this bolts to the subframe is shimmed to muck around with your camber, and after many years or so of mucking around with this, I've sort of settled on where I like it, and in this case there's only one shim in behind the top part of this bracket. That's up the top here. There's a massive amount of shims in the bottom one that gives it negative camber. For a road car you wouldn't want that, but being a rally car it needs some good negative camber to get turn in. Wears the tyres out, of course, but the tyres don't usually get enough time to wear out in the sort of on the inside edge, simply because they get worn out just being used for motorsport. It's not going to stay there. Now, that little bracket that I talked about that breaks a lot, it's got 2 shims behind it. And these bolts are mighty awkward to get to, which is disappointing. Like I've said with Triumphs, as against the Toyota, nothing just lines up and you push the bolts in. Everything has to be wiggled and jiggled and doesn't want to go in for some reason. It's always been a bit of a mystery. I don't know if it's just not, the engineering's just not there back then, or old age and everything sort of moved a bit, which I don't think is the case. I think it has moved a bit, but not in relation to this sort of thing. Alright, what we've got now is that top suspension arms on and the upright, I suppose you call it. Next is the lower control arm, and need to get some grease on here. I've bought these fancy out of England adjustable suspension arm. It's a adjust the caster. It's sort of where the wheel is, and so they're next to go on. Now this is the old one that came off, which is not adjustable. So I've just sort of eyeballed it, I suppose you'd call it, to the same length as the old one, and then we'll need to go get a wheel alignment and work out what sort of caster we're going to run on it, and that might take a bit more research on my behalf, because I don't know whether oh, bloody GoPros. Yeah, when it comes to caster, I don't know what's the best, whether the wheel pull forward, the wheel pull back. I know one of them gives you, you know, like when you let go of the steering wheel, it goes back to centre at one. I'll have to look into that one. Never been able to adjust it in the past, so I haven't bothered with it. Well, it's time to get this spring and shock absorber in. These are new shock absorbers. They're SPAC. Now it used to have SPAC on the front before. These ones have got adjustable platforms on them. I don't know if that's going to be any great help or not. I've just sort of put them the same as what the old shocks were. The old shocks were still actually working. They looked pretty daggy. They had a hard life, but the shaft was, the chrome was starting to go, and I thought, oh, it's only a matter of time, and they'll be no good. So I got these. It used to have conies on the back, but it's now got SPAC as well. Same sort of thing, adjustable platforms. Same spring that's been in it for years. Okay, now let's see. Upright stub axle setup. Now, in the old days when I owned 4 dollies, sometimes life would be very simple, okay? These little brackets hold the hose, brake line hose. Flexible hose on one side, then it's a hard line hose to the caliper. Now in the old days you just sort of stick your head under one of the other dollies if you happen to get these two mixed up, to try and work out which side goes on which side. Well, that's no longer the case. So I've got to work it out for myself, and no doubt I'll get it wrong. We'll take our best guess, eh? And hope for the best. Now get these sort of nuts onto the ball joints. Now the ball joints are still the same ones that were in it when I started all this. Yeah, they didn't need replacing. They do last quite a good length of time, as against cars that I used in motorsport prior to the Dolomite. They last quite a long time. The Marina was a matter of endlessly pulling the suspension apart to try and adjust the top ball joint, the shuffles, it was horrible. So basically every time you jack the car up you'd have to attend to something. And minis weren't too good either. I had lots of problems with ball joints in minis, where the Triumphs, all 3 Triumphs, they take a long time to wear out a ball joint, which is pretty good. Why are these nuts not happy going on? Now, like I've said before, I'm exceedingly grateful that that the parts are still available for these old things, you know. When it comes to that Toyota, you know, it's not going at the moment because of something called an ignition module. I think that's what's failed. And now it's been weeks now waiting on this part from some company that seems to be mucking me around. Anyway, the facts of life are I could buy all this stuff for the Triumph without any great problems. But, like, I'm about to put a new tie rod end on there, and that's got a metric headed nut on it. Now I don't know if the thread's metric or not. It's a remanufactured part. It means I've got to have a metric spanner. And if it's a metric thread, it means that you've got to be really careful. Hence my concern with those 2 nuts not wanting to go on whether these ball joints were in the same boat. Put this brake line hose on and see how it lines up. I'm getting too old for this. Beginning to wonder whether poor old TR7's going to get done. Now, 7's not going to be a total rebuild. It's only got a bit of work to do on it. Got electric power steering to go on, and adjustable sort of, got my person struts, adjust the camber and caster on it on that. The fuel gauge is not working, power booster's not working. So there's only a few jobs to do on the 7. So it's not a total disassemble, it's just repair stuff. So maybe it will get done, but it's getting harder and harder to do all this, and there's still so much work on this. Maybe that's not a metric. I can't find a spanner to fit this nut on this tie rod end. It's a loose 17mm. It's a very loose. That's way too big. Yeah, it's a very loose 11/16, and 5/8 won't fit at all. And that's the real downside of remanufactured parts. But at least I've got the parts. Well, there you go, the front suspension is done, except for the sway bar. Everything's tightened up, and once the sway bar's on, then it'll be the brakes. And thanks to the magic of video, both sides are now done and finished. The top strut tops are done, all ready for the sway bar. And yes, next job will be the sway bar, and that will be it. After that will be the brakes. Well, it's been a while since I put a front sway bar on. I do remember that they can be pretty cantankerous, so you know, let's see how it goes. Well, all the front suspension is now back together. I didn't end up filming much of the sway bar assembly, as it was a bit of a nightmare, and it took hours, and so as you can see, it's all back on, and the front suspension on both sides, subframe, everything's in. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the restoration of this poor old dolly. Tune in, same duck time, same duck channel, for more mechanical mayhem on this poor old dolly. When you'll see me put the brakes back together with a bit of luck. Bye for now.